Ladies, the program is about to begin. I have one request from all of you. Anybody has a cell phone? Please turn it off. Put it on silent. Put it on vibrate. Please turn off your cell phones. Thank you. All right, come here a moment. I just want to get the level on you. I'll give you a signal.
Good evening. Before we begin, I'm going to announce a name for Refuah Shalema, and I ask that everybody answer Amen. Refuah Shalema leElisheva bas Chana. Thank you. We are going to begin with the Rebbe's Kapitel, led by the wonderful Batsheva Majeski. Please rise. Batsheva Lazaroff. Sorry. Good point. We're all Majeski somewhere.
Lailanu Adonai Lailanu Kiddush Shemcha Kavod Achascha Ala Mitacha. Velehinu v'Shamayim Kol Asher Chafetz Asa. Atabeim Kesef V'Zav Maaseh Yedei Adam. Pelahem V'Lo Yitbiru Einayim Lahem V'Lo Yir'u. Aznayim Lahem V'Lo Yishma'u Af Lahem V'Lo Yirichon. Yedehem V'Lo Yimishon Raglehem V'Lo Ya'alichu Lo Yagur B'Reinam. Kemayim Yiyu Aisiyam Kol Asher B'Dik B'Hem. Yisrael B'Tach B'Adonai Ezer M'Meginam Hu. B'Yisrael Yor'ei Adonai B'Tchu Adonai Ezer M'Meginam Hu. Adonai Zerchoni Yivarech Yivarech Espes Yisrael Yivarech Espes Aaron. Yivarech Yor'ei Adonai Haktanim M'Migdalim. Yosef Adonai Aleichem Aleichem V'al B'neichem. Baruchem Atem Adonai Eisi Shemayim V'aretz. Yivarech Yamei Yechi Adonai Nimeina V'Rabbeinu Melech B'Shech Le'Lamat.
Thank you, Batsheva Lazaroff. In the Jewish calendar, a new day begins just as the previous day ends. And so, as we are gathered here tonight, it is already Chav Ches Teves, the auspicious day marking the birthday of Rebbetzin Chana, the Rebbe's mother. The stories of Rebbetzin Chana vary, but the theme is the same. They highlight Rebbetzin Chana's bravery, her steadfast determination for Torah and mitzvahs, and her Mesiras Nefesh not only to keep the letter of the law, but to beautify it, to be Mahudar. the well-known story of Rebbetzin Chana toiling under extreme conditions while in exile, just to be able to create ink for Reb Levi Yitzchak to write words of Torah, is the perfect portrayal of who Rebbetzin Chana was. And to put in the work required, it is so appropriate to be here tonight, celebrating Machon Lyahadus and applauding Rabbi Majeski, his devoted staff, and the dedicated young women of Machon Lyahadus, who are putting in the effort every single day to follow in Rebbetzin Chana's ways, to go beyond the letter of the law, and to make Yiddishkeit beautiful. It is my pleasure to call upon my dear uncle, Rabbi Majeski, to share with us some words of Torah tonight.
As you just heard, that tonight, Chav Ches Teves, is the birthday of Rebbetzin Chana, Eim HaMalchus, the mother of royalty. This date was unknown. No one knew that this is Rebbetzin Chana's birthday until Chav Ches Teves, Tavshin Nun Beis, 5752, when the Rebbe publicized this in a Sikha. And perhaps we can say that because a birthday is a day that Mazal HaGever, the mazel of a person is the strongest and most powerful on that day, a day that the Rebbetzins' efforts and brachas are met with unparalleled success. As the Rebbe knew that precisely 2 months later, which is Chav Zayin, Chav Ches, Adar 5752, will begin a new era when we'll need so much more bracha. And the Rebbe provided us with a new source to draw more bracha. Chav Ches Teves is the birthday of Rebbetzin Chana. Certainly, the Rebbetzin is being mashpia, her brachas to all of Klal Yisrael, and especially to Neshei Ubnei Yisrael, and especially to Neshei Ubnei Chabad. This week's parsha is who was the one to strike the river, not Moshe, but Aaron. And the reason is because the river saved Moshe Rabbeinu's life when he was a child, baby, an infant, and therefore, as a Koras HaTov, as a sign of gratitude, he didn't strike and bring a plague on the river. The Makkah of Kinim, who was supposed to strike the earth to produce Kinim? Not Moshe, but Aaron. Because Moshe Rabbeinu's life was saved when he killed the Mitzri, he covered it with earth, and being that the earth saved his life, he needed to show Hakaras HaTov, and he couldn't strike the earth. Of course, on the surface, it seems a little bit puzzling. Water, but is actually a mimer of the Rebbe Marash, where he explains in reference to other things that every creation in the world has a malach, has an angel that's in charge of that creation. And that angel is the one that's being addressed. The angel in charge of the water, the angel in charge of the earth. The Moshe Rabbeinu had a debt of gratitude toward them. And this is one of the first lessons we learn in the Torah, right? By Adam Arishon. The Torah tells us how Adam failed to show the Eibishter gratitude for giving him Chava. On the contrary, he even complained about it. So therefore, I want to take the opportunity tonight to express Hakaras HaTov, gratitude to all those that support Machon Lyahadus in general, and specifically tonight's event. May you all and I also want to express Hakaras HaTov, gratitude to our entire staff. Machon Lyahadus is fortunate to have a staff that I think is the envy institution, an amazing team charged with unconditional devotion to the students. May they all see the Rebbetzin, Chana's brachas in their personal lives with their eyes of flesh. And especially one of the pillars of Machon Lyahadus, Mrs. Papes, Sulika Shulames Bas Iza, we should see, and she should see, a complete, miraculous refuah shlema, refuah skreva, v'chol ebereh b'gideo, take of miyad mamish. And finally, maybe the young women who stood up to all the challenges, and only they truly know the extent of these challenges to come here. They came to immerse themselves in Torah study, and we, the staff, always talk amongst ourselves how we're filled with awe and admiration towards these young women. May they see the Rebbetzin, Chana's brachas in their personal lives and in their success following the Rebbetzins' footsteps. May we all see the ultimate bracha in the words of the first Chana, Chana the prophetess, the mother of Shmuel Hanavi, the one who anointed David Malka Mashiach, V'yitein oiz l'malkei, v'yarem kerem Mashiach, Hashem should give strength to his king, meaning Mashiach, and raise the banner of his Mashiach. May it be now taken from Miyad Mamish.
Thank you, Rabbi Majeski. For those watching at home, you can still order tickets up until our live drawing at machonauction.com. And for those who are here, we are having a number of raffles throughout the evening to celebrate that you arrived. Our first 2 tickets I have in front of me. The first prize is 5 museum tickets to the Jewish Children's Museum, generously sponsored by Rabbi Baumgarten, and that is going to Mushka Rubin. Yay. And the second admission raffle, which is a $50 gift certificate to the Albany Bake Shop, generously sponsored by Rabbi Karlitsky, is going to Sarah Simon. Say that about anybody. Ruth Devara is not only a founder of Torah Therapeutics, a Torah-inspired approach to holistic healing, she is also a dear friend to Machon Lyahadus. I speak to them several times a year as well. Ruth Devara, the mic is yours.
It's a Jewish mic. We'll call it Machoil, but it's a women's program tonight. Welcome, ladies. Thank you very much for coming and supporting Machon. It's a very dear institution to me. As many of you know, I've been connected with and involved with Machon for many, many years. Since I had the schus a few years, many years ago. And I'm going to share a little bit with you tonight. My talk is called A Dollar and a Dream. Yehudas Cohen, thank you for helping me with that title, which helped me focus on what I'm going to speak about. Dreams and dollars from the Rebbe. A Dollar and a Dream was the New York State Lottery's slogan. And really, I guess what it means is you don't need a lot. All you need to do is wish and think good thoughts and dream good dreams and have desires. And $1 is not a lot, but the dream is the essential thing. And he's crying out to Hashem, ruler of the universe, Rabbeinu Shalom, please help me win the lottery at least once. Let me win something. And a booming voice, a heavenly voice comes out, and he says, Yankel, nu, go buy a ticket. Now, this is not just a joke. This is our reality. The Rebbe says many times in his talks, in his letters, that threshold is usually what we call I'm a social worker. Like I told somebody before, I'm social and I work. So in social work terms, that barrier we would call a psychological barrier. There's a glass ceiling that's preventing us from stepping over. So we might have a dream, And we might have that dollar, but are we going to resolve? Are we going to do something about it? Are we going to participate not just mentally in that dream, but physically with Hamaisahu Ha'ikr? And tonight you all came out. And anybody who's joining us online, and anybody who's going to join us online, and anybody who participated before and is going to participate after, I thank you very, very much for step in. The action is essential. Jeski told us about, and her namesake, the prophetess, gave Shmuel. It was a gift to Hashem. And our Rebbe, his mother, Chana, gave him to us in her birthing him and raising him and bringing him up with not just the values of Yiddishkeit, but the values of bringing up somebody who's going to be the next leader of a generation. She gave and sacrificed, like the Rebbe's wife, Rebbetzin Chayamushka, gave and sacrificed in support of this Mishkan. We know it says in the Torah, Va'asuli mikdash v'shochanti b'socham. Make for me a mikdash, and I will dwell in it. Make for me a holy place, and I will dwell in it. The actual translation is usually translated as make a mishkan, a mikdash. And if you look grammatically at the verse, it says b'socham. And the commentators say b'socham in plural refers to kol echad ve'echad. Each and every individual person is a mishkan. We don't have the Beis HaMikdash, please God, soon because of your support of the Machon. You're bringing us closer to Mashiach with your efforts and your tzedakah. But since we don't have the Beis HaMikdash Hashlishi, the third Beis HaMikdash, the Mishkan is within each of us. Like the song says, Bilvavi Mishkan Evneh. In my heart, I will build a Mishkan. So each of us has this holy opportunity. And the Rebbe, thank you very much, L'chaim. I said a bracha before, so I'm not going to say it again. L'chaim. That's a Jewish woman, sensitive to the needs of her sister. Thank you. My new sister. Hi. So, what do we do in a Mishkan? What is the service of a Mishkan? It's an elevation. It's an elevation of what's down here to bring it up. Anything that we touch, we see, we hear, we do, needs to be lifted up. Machon Chana is the place of uplifting. Machon is the place of uplifting. Every Jewish girl who comes here, every Jewish woman who comes to this school starts at a certain level. She might be on the 3rd floor of a building, the 5th floor of a building, but she's always going to go up. And the effort from down here, as Chassidus says, in Isarusa de Lasata, an elevation from below is much greater than an elevation that's pulled from above. We need to make our own effort. And the girls, the women who come to the Machon, they study every day so that they can bring another generation up and another generation up in the ways of Torah. So, when I was a little girl, I didn't grow up with this stuff. I was a very strange child. You know, I guess Yiddishkeit helped me a lot. I'm not that strange anymore, but I was brought up Reform, not observant, and I asked a million questions in Sunday school, and there were no decent answers. And I knew they were not decent answers. And they would push me off and kind of hem and haw. I might ask something like, how are Jews and non-Jews different? And they would say something ridiculous like, we are not. So I said, well, why are they called non-Jews? Why are they called Gentiles? And we're called Jews. Did anybody ever think about that? Right? So what's ironic about this, not only are we not different, according to their answer, but non-Jew means the non-Jew is being compared to us. Do you see this? So I knew that Jews were special. So I wanted to know more. I asked a million questions. Why do people keep kosher? Oh, you don't need to do that. We've got USDA laws. It protects us. There's no trichinosis in pork anymore. These were the kind of answers that I was fed. They were really not very satisfying fodder. So I kept asking. And I decided when I was in high school, I wanted to go to the Hebrew high school. That was conservative. My poor mother had another carpool. And they didn't understand why I wanted to go to this conservative high school, but they were my wonderful, reform, very lenient, caring, loving parents, and they did whatever I asked. It wasn't like I was asking to do something bad. I did that in other times. But I wanted to go and learn more, so I asked more questions, very unsatisfying answers. Like, what's a soul? Well, there's no such thing. But I knew different. I knew that wasn't true. So I decided when I graduate from high school, I'm going to go to a college that will prepare me to become a rabbi. I decided I would go to University of Cincinnati that was across the street from the Hebrew Union College so that I could become a rabbi. Instead, I'd become a rabbet, maybe. A rabbit. So, as you see, ever since I was a little girl, I wanted something to do with Judaism. Every night, I know this sounds interesting to Balos Tshuva, but every night my mother came to my bedroom and said, Shema with me. The first and second lines. I knew Shema and Baruch Shem Kavod by heart. We said it every night. All right, I didn't know the Vyahafta then, But that was translated into English. So every night, I was affirming every night that God is one. And the Jewish people have this God who is one. And then when I got into second grade, I had a dream. I know, last week was Martin Luther King Day. But I had a dream. What was my dream? In second grade, I had a teacher, a music teacher. I looked at her. I can even tell you her name, Miss Youngkin. I remember her. I can see her face. She was Jewish. She was a teacher. And she was a music teacher. I liked Jewish. I liked music. And I liked this teacher. And I said, someday when I get big, I want to have to do with Jewish and music and teaching. And that was my dream. I didn't have $1 then. My parents had the $1, but I had that dream. And that dream stayed with me. So then when I went to that high school, and then when I went to college, I continued following that dream. I went to the college thinking, when I graduate, I'll be able to go to this graduate school at Hebrew Union College and become a rabbet. And so I hung out at the Hebrew Union College. I read some of the books in the library. And one day I saw this light blue and white volume. It was called the Tanya. It looked really interesting. I pulled it out of the shelf and I opened it up and it was fascinating. I didn't know what it was saying, but it looked so interesting. And I borrowed it and I read it a couple times and I brought it back. They didn't have very many kosher books, but that one stuck out somehow. And I read that book and I said, wow, Judaism is really deep. And then one day I was visiting my sister who was living in Cleveland at the time. And my whole family was really keen on this. My sister, the rabbi, my daughter, the rabbi. Sometimes people are proud of my son, the rabbi. So my sister took me to a Jewish bookstore in Cleveland called Frank's. And I went to Frank and I said to him, I want a book that's 100% Jewish, not watered down. I got watered down Judaism in Sunday school. I got watered down Judaism in Hebrew High. I want the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So he gave me the first volume of Me'am Lo'ez, the Torah anthology. So this thick book that traverses the whole 12 chapters of Genesis, Bereshis Aleph through Yud Beis, was so full and so rich. I devoured it. I read Bereshis voraciously. I said, oh my gosh, this is it. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I became a Torah junkie. I needed more. Now, if you know Hasidus, you know the idea of this Isserus de Lasata, Isserus de La'ela that I mentioned before, an arousal from below, an arousal from above. And only when you make the effort from below does it remain permanent. So I got inspired by this book, but I went back to college, and college made me forget. Until one day, I was minding my own business, wandering on campus, and I saw a rabbi with a lending library of Jewish books. And on that table was the Me'am Lo'ez. I said, Rabbi, I read that book. Like I was a Chabad rabbi's dream on campus, right? Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? I'm like, Rabbi, are you Jewish? And I said, I read that book. I want the next volume. He said, it's not out yet. Okay, now you can figure out how old I am. Me'am Lo'ez, Genesis, Aleph through Yud Beis. So I read that book, and I told him, it's amazing. I need to know more. So he invited me for Shabbos. So I was a jeans and T-shirt wearer in those days. So I wear skirts and T-shirts now. But I thought you get dressed up. We went to temple. We got dressed up for temple. So I got dressed up in my nicest pantsuit. I didn't know girls have to wear skirts and dresses. I bought the most beautiful decanter of wine. I didn't know it needed to be kosher. What did I know? And I knock on the door, and a little 3 or 4-year-old girl's looking me up and down like, what is it? She was kind of sheltered. She's looking me up like it's got a girl's face, but it's wearing pants. Like, what is it? Are you a girl? I said, yes. She, why are you wearing pants? I said, because I don't have a dress. She goes, you don't have a dress? She started crying and freaking out. Ema, mommy, this girl doesn't have a dress. She thought I was deprived. My father, God bless his soul, he was a plastic surgeon. I wasn't so deprived. And then I was a music major. I didn't know psychotherapy. I could have helped the trauma now, but not then. She was freaking out. She went to her mother and pulled her skirt. Mommy, this girl doesn't have a dress. And the woman invited me in. And there was no more comment about the skirt or the dress. Thank God that little kid went to sleep soon. Why are you wearing his pants? So I talked with this woman, and she had very intelligent answers like her husband did. And then he came home, and I asked him questions. And the most remarkable thing was when he came home, he sang Lyahadus, Shalom Aleichem and Eishes Chayil, and he had children in his arms, and he was dancing around the table. Wow, this is amazing. And then she was Sephardic, so she had this delicious couscous and way to Rustavoras through her stomach. It was really good stuff. And that was it. The Torah, the good food, the nice people, answering my questions. I'm like, I found it. This is it. This was the dream that I had. And then I had all sorts of questions as a music major whose major instrument and concentration was voice. So I asked a Shaila, and the Rav, Rabbi Sharfstein, Olav Shalom, asked me, are there any Jewish men on the boards that you have to sing to? I said, no. He said, well, when you graduate, it's okay. You'll sing to those people, but you won't sing in front of men in general. And so I graduated, and I decided that I wanted to go to Machon Alta in Tzfat. That's it. Like my poor parents, they've seen these transformations. I went from pants to skirts. Like that was, they thought it was a shtick, but the shtick stuck, you know? They thought it was going to end soon, but it didn't. And then I'm coming home and asking them to change the pots and the pans and do this. And my mother was very nice. She gave me my own pots and pans. But to go to Israel, thank you. You got to keep refilling me. L'chaim. L'chaim Tovim, another sister. Thank you for your Avos Yisrael. Don't worry, it's just water. I'll be able to stand the whole time. So I needed to go to Machon Alta. I knew that this was the place to go. Some people had said to me, come to Crown Heights and study in the Machon there. Some people said I needed to go to another place. Some people said but I only wanted to go to Israel. And some people said, go to Jerusalem. Come to New York. Find a shidduch. I said, I didn't want to go out yet. I want to learn. Like the yeshiva program, every day at the Machon, you learn how to live like a Jew, like a Jewish woman. You know how to open a home to guests. You know how to serve kosher food and have the right values, the Torah values. That's what I wanted. And I wanted to do it in a quiet place because I was very distractible. So Tzfat, I thought, was the best place. So I wrote a letter to the Rebbe, and I had some people help me. There was a heading, Lichvod Kedushas Admor Shlita, and you would write the questions and the concerns. And because I had these Rebbetzins telling me, no, you want to go to New York and get married, and no, you want to go this. So I put my request at the end. I want to go to Tzfat. So I gave all of these things and delineated them. And it took weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and I didn't get an answer and didn't get an answer and didn't get an answer and didn't get an answer. Then finally, one night there was a hookup. We used to have these things before the internet called telephones. They were regular telephones, and they hooked up to like a microphone that went into like a speaker, and that was called a hookup. And there was a hookup, and the Rebbe was speaking. It was a Farbrengen. And the Rebbe spoke about many different topics that night, but my ears peaked when he started speaking about people going to a yeshiva. And he talked about various permutations. One person is going to Israel. One person's coming from Israel. One person is going from this yeshiva to that yeshiva. Should ask the Rosh Yeshiva of the first, and many details. At the end of that talk, I went over to Rabbi Greenberg in Buffalo, my rabbi, and I said, did he answer me? He said, no. You didn't get an answer. I said, okay. I said, you know what? During the break, between the sichos, when the Rebbe would speak, during the break, he would look around and make l'chaim with the people in the audience. There was no l'chaim at the Chabad house. I said, I'm running home. I'll go get a bottle of vodka. My parents didn't drink, so there was plenty of vodka there. Not like in a Chabad house. So I went home. My parents are like, oh, you're home. Yeah, I need to borrow a bottle of vodka and bring it to the shul. Borrow. It's going to come back empty. My father said to me, you know, there's a problem. You want to go to this school in Israel, and we looked in the safe for your passport, and it's expired. Now, in those days, pre-internet, pre all these other things, if you lived in Buffalo, it's still a little backwards, but you couldn't get a passport for weeks. You'd have to send it in to Boston, and who knows how long it would take to process. And my mother had bought me a ticket for Israel for 2 weeks later. I'm like, oh no, Dad, what do I do? He said, go to the post office tomorrow morning and write a letter and tell them your predicament. Maybe they'll have mercy. So I did that. Well, we didn't talk about the mashka, but that's okay. The Farbrengen went on, and everything was fine, and they drank, and l'chaim. The next day, I go to the post office, And I write this letter. Maybe I was really dramatic, so I cried on it so you could see the ink dripping on the page, make it a little... And I explained that I have this ticket and I really need to go and it's my school and I have to go and I need my passport very quickly. And I overnighted it. In those days, they actually still had overnight mail. And I sent it. So the Verbrengen was on Sunday. I sent the package on Monday. There was a Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, I get a call from Rabbi Groner, one of the Rebbe's secretaries. The Rebbe gives you a bracha to go to Machon Alta. I was totally blown away. After I hang up the phone, the doorbell rings. It's the postman. In those days it was postman, mailman or whatever you want to call it, the mail person, the female mail person, whatever they're called. The mail deliverer, the postal deliverer came and rang the bell. And he gave me a package. They had overnighted my passport. 1 day turnaround. Don't clap at me. Clap at the Eberster and the Rebbe and all the amazing things. The Rebbe said, she can't go to Israel without a passport that's legitimate. I mean, the Rebbe's practical. Somehow he saw, he knew. And then, of course, Baruch Hashem, I had the merit to go to Israel. Some of my friends are here that were in Machon Alta when I was there. My classmates are here. So I had the zchus to go there, and that prepared me for my Crown Heights experience. I see a couple people right there, my roommates and friends from Machon Alta from 1981, 82 it was. It was 1980, not 18, Tiki. Thanks. Not that old. So, when I got back from Machon Alta, during the summer, I get a call from a woman by the name of Mrs. Gansburg. Hello, this is Mrs. Gansburg. I said, hello. She goes, Shifra Chana Hendry told me to call you. I said, okay. So Shifra Chana had met me in Minnesota before I went to Machon Alta. There was one semester I got to go to Minnesota to Beis Chana. So Shifra Chana has recommended me to be the madricha at the dorm, in the dorm. So I said, okay, I don't know what this is about, but I'll try it. And I came to Machon Chana. This was after actually a little bit of time that I had been in Buffalo and I had helped at the Chabad house for a little while. And I came to Machon and I was a madricha in the dorm for a couple years, and then continued being involved in the dorm. During this time, I had the merit, the zchus, many times to be able to be by the Rebbe at a Verbrengen. Like it says, if you didn't see Simchas Beis HaShoeva, you never saw a simcha in your life. This is really what it was like in the Rebbe's court. If you were not at a Verbrengen, you never saw Judaism. You never saw simcha in your life until you saw Simchas Beis HaShoeva and the Rebbe dancing with his little Torah. We had many beautiful, wonderful experiences. And as I was saying to Mrs. Klein today, that we were so fortunate to have all these opportunities to get dollars in the dollars line from the Rebbe and the Verbrengens. And it was an amazing time. And now I look out here and I see women whom I've had the merit to meet at our Shabbatonim that we've had in Buffalo. Buffalo's good for something. They have a Shabbaton, hopefully an annual, right, Rabbi Majeski? You here? Hopefully an annual. We've had 3 of them so far. 30 girls come on vans at the end of the school year as like a pre-graduation trip, and we farm them out to different houses for sleeping, and then they come to me for meals, and then we farm them out to Rabbi Greenberg for a shiur, and then they come back, and We swim, they go to Niagara Falls, and it's a really wonderful thing since I didn't make Niagara Falls. And so we had so many opportunities, and I look out at these women whom I'm just meeting in Machon Chana in the last few years, and I'm seeing women who did not have these special opportunities to stand in front of the Rebbe for $1, to ask for a blessing, to be at a Farbrengen, to watch him dance with his Torah. And I say this about my husband also, because he didn't ever have an opportunity, that your souls must be on such a high level because you were receptive to the signals without having the Rebbe visibly here. And I praise you for coming and having the fortitude and having the strength to go against, we're like salmon swimming against the tide. To become an observant Jew in this society, in this incredible time, which is pre-Mashiach, I call this PMS. Pre-Mashiach syndrome. Right? It's such a difficult time in the world. And people are still not just becoming frum, they're becoming Lubavitchers, loving the Rebbe and appreciating the Rebbe. So some of you have probably heard Mrs. Esther Sternberg speak, and you've probably met her, and she's come to the Machon many times to speak. Well, Mrs. Sternberg's brother is Rabbi Garari in Buffalo, so I had a little in with her. She was the person whom Rabbi Weinberg, who received dollars from the Rebbe, would get half of the dollars to distribute out to the women. And I, probably because of my stature physically, and Dorit Rogers, because of her tall stature as well, were asked to be bodyguards, bouncers of the dollars. And she would give us a couple $100. They were in these wrappers, like a strip of paper, and we would distribute them. And you'd get mauled and attacked and everything. You know, you have to make sure you got $1 too, or they would be just torn out of your hands. But it was, what an opportunity. I got to hold the packet of dollars that the Rebbe held. And because I got the packet, I pulled off those sleeves, those little straps, and stuck them in my pockets. So I got something that the Rebbe touched in addition to the dollar. So before we go further, speaking of dollars, I'm going to make an unpaid advertisement for auctioning off the dollar. I tonight have donated one of my personal dollars that the Rebbe gave me. And don't clap. Clap at the end. And a wrapper. So if you were going to donate to that dollar, donate more, because I think the Rebbe touched that wrapper closer than the dollars inside the wrapper. So don't forget to put in your money for that auction. So I had the schus to be at those dollars. I was also a bouncer on Kingston Avenue. Anybody remember? Cyril, hi. Cyril was on the line with me. I was one of those bouncers. We had to clear out the shul. Thank you. I'm going to need lots more. Thank you. Appreciate it. I got 3 glasses here. They're all of different heights. I'll organize them in an obsessive compulsive fashion. The least filled to the left. So some of you will remember there would be very long lines to get into shul on Erev Simchas Torah, Hoshana Rabbah. Meanwhile, all the good Lubavitcher girls were home helping their mothers prepare. And so we would lock the doors of 770 because they have to have a fair chance to get in, right? All of the, we'll just say people from other countries, we're not going to qualify which, But they would race to the door and stand like football players there, not letting anybody in. And we had to go in and clear out the shul and make sure that nobody's hiding in the bathroom, make sure that the sforim are on the shelves so they don't get knocked over. And Mrs. Gonsberg and the Machon Chana girls, Rishi, do you remember this? Cyril, you remember everything. We had kind of like one window. It was a modest window. It wasn't right next to the Rebbe, but it was a couple windows over. But as soon as the Machon Chana girls got in, they made sure that they lined the front and second and third rows to help other women see. This was the Avos Yisrael window with Mrs. Gonsberg. And we were so well known, even by the men in 770, because Mrs. Gonsberg, if you remember her, Alei Shalom, she was a force to be reckoned with. She would tell those men, take off your hat. It's too high. We can't see. Because in 770, you're looking through a crack that's 2 inches tall, or you're looking through a black piece of whatever, or you're looking over that. Well, that you got a whole 6 inches on the top, right? And so we would squat. The first one, not I wasn't one of the short ones. We were literally in size order. Mrs. Gonsberg would help organize us, making sure that the shortest people were up front with the most Ahavas Yisrael. You weren't standing like this. You were standing so that you could see. All you needed was the size of a keyhole to see the Rebbe. And that's what we did. Mrs. Gonsberg showed us the ultimate Ahavas Yisrael and how to look at the Rebbe. You don't stand there and look full force. You look just through a little hole, and that's all you needed. And she showed us that everybody could fit. There's an expression, I don't know where it's from, so we'll say it's from the Gemara, because if you don't know where something's from, just say it's from the Gemara. Who's going to refute you, especially in a women's audience? So it says in the Gemara, Ha'ava docheket et habasar. Love comes thing. I didn't know really anything about the Rebbe. And so the customs and the things were very odd and very strange and very foreign. And one night I came to that house right before Shabbos, rushing, and I hadn't eaten that day, and I had an exam, and I was very stressed out. And I got what some people, anybody here know what those are? Yeah, it was pretty bad. You don't need to confess in public. So I had a really bad headache. And I told the lady of the house, I need something. I have a horrible headache. Well, she didn't know how horrible my headache was. And I didn't know much about the laws. She said, well, if it's not so bad, we don't take anything on Shabbos. Okay, so I'm a newbie, what do I know? So I'm holding out, but it's getting worse and worse. So I tell her I need something. So she gives me something. It didn't do anything. The rabbi comes home. We're going to finish the first one. Always finish what you've started. So the rabbi came home, and she said, my English name, Darcy, has a headache. He said, oh, let's give her Rebbe's wine. I said, wine? On an empty stomach with a headache? That doesn't sound very good. Because I was a party girl. I know about empty stomachs and headaches. I said, I don't think I could do that. He says, it's just a drop. I'll give the rest of it as grape juice. I said, okay, that I could handle. So he put in a little of the wine and was very careful. When you got kos shel bracha, a cup of blessing from the Rebbe, it was usually on a Havdalah cup. The Rebbe would make Havdalah, and people would file by, and for hours the Rebbe would pour into people's cups a little cup of blessing. So that cup of blessing could be increased. We actually have just this much Rebbe's wine, so you would always just add under the amount that was in there. One of those headaches would normally last overnight. I'd have to do something very uncomfortable to get rid of it, and thank God it was gone. I said, wow, this was a miracle. This was my first exposure to a Rebbe miracle. I was in college. I wasn't religious yet. And then that became something. I never get headaches anymore, thank God. I've changed my lifestyle. I've changed certain sleeping patterns, diet, etc. But in those days, I would get migraines, and very often it was either on Erev Shabbos or Shabbos. And occasionally, Mrs. Klein will testify, I would come across from the Machon that was at 825 Eastern Parkway, and she lives at 750, and I would make a beeline. I've got a headache. I need a little kosher bracha, and I'd have a little sip, and then I'd be fine. It was literally an amazing thing that I had. But before I was frum, I had that connection, and I realized that there's something very, very incredible about the Rebbe. Then, having worked for Machon for many, many years and having an opportunity to be part of Machon, I was working for a program called the Ivy League Torah Study Program under National Committee for the Furtherance of Jewish Education with Rabbi Hecht, Olav Shalom. And I told Rabbi Hecht that my parents were coming to town, and he said, I'm going to introduce them to the Rebbe. And I have 4 incredible pictures of this. It's such a special schus. I got $1 from that opportunity. And then after that, the Rebbe gave me another $1 and said, give this to tzedakah on the day of your wedding. So I knew I'm going to get married sometime. Okay? That like kind of puts it to bed, don't worry about that one. And I'm going to share 1 or 2 more Rebbe stories, and then we'll conclude. Another very special thing is Darcy Bas Joan. Okay, eventually it became Rustavora Bas Joan, but it was Rustavora Bas Joan for many, many years. And one Motzei Shabbos, I was at the Klein's house, and Rabbi Klein said to me, I think it's about time that your mother take a Jewish name. So he actually led me to the phone, remember, in the front room there? And he had me call my mother on the spot. And I called her, and I said, Mom, Rabbi Klein thinks you should have a Jewish name. I said, etymologically, that is Chana. Joanne. Anne is Chana. So my mother had her own nevuah katana about her name. We told Rabbi Klein, and that Monday, Rabbi Klein gave my mother a bracha at the Rebbe's Torah reading. So my mother was named at the Rebbe's Kriya. And last but not least, because it has to do with our Mrs. Gansburg, Alea Shalom, whom we all, the girls who are in the dorm now, you have a wonderful house mother, and you're very blessed to have her. Baruch Hashem, Chana, Nemni. Why did I want to learn Russian? I don't know. Maybe because my grandmother, Alea Shalom, was from Kiev, but the other side were American for many generations, even from Lincoln's time, because we have a document that says my great whatever mother wrote a letter to Lincoln to get her son out of the army. So I'm a real blue-blooded American. It's amazing I'm even Jewish. I know I've got a very small nose, but I am Jewish as far as I know. And I took Russian. Well, I became a Lubavitcher, and Russian is one of them, and there's Latvian, and go Ukrainians. So, for whatever reason, I was attracted to Russian. I took Russian, and I could read the Russian alphabet, and I knew some basic Russian, helping brothers to go to Russia. And they put me together with another woman, a partner, and we went to Russia the first time, and it was very successful. We got a bracha from the Rebbe. As a matter of fact, I believe we were the first 2 women to go after the Rebbe had stopped women from going because things were being confiscated. It was a very, very frightening time before Glasnost and Perestroika, but we're talking now 1989 and 90. We wouldn't have known that. And we took girls from Beis Rivka Seminary to be teachers. Each one, we gave them a subject. One was going to teach Chumash, and one was going to teach history, and one Hasidus. And each of these girls did not speak Russian, but we made sure that one girl in each class was переводчик, a translator. And we had a very successful program. 10 of those girls, after the program, observant, and one went back to Russia and is on shlichus. So all I want to tell you is it was an incredible privilege to be able to be connected to the Rebbe, to have these special opportunities. By Simchas Torah, where he was dancing with his Torah in shul. All of these to be able to follow my dream. My dream, as you remember, when I was in second grade, was to have something to do with Jewish teaching and music. And I have the schus to incorporate those things in my life. If you really want to accomplish something, the dream needs to be thought about over and over. And you need to speak about it over and over. And you need to do things to bring that dream closer and closer. And that's what Hasidus is about. Machshava, Dibur, and Maesi. Bringing them all together. Aligning your thoughts, speech, and action so that they're all one cohesive thing. And you will attain your dreams. And Hashem will give you strength to attain your dreams. So Hashem should bench us all. He should bless us all. That in the merit of the Rebbetzin Chana, whose birthday is today, in the merit of all of the wonderful work that the Machon does, all the staff members do, Rabbi Majeski does day to day, Zalman, Lazaroff, and the fundraising, and all of the wonderful things. In this merit, we should all bring Mashiach one step closer, and he should be with us immediately now, mamash.
Thank you, Ristovara. All right, I got a lot of stuff here, including 2 credit cards. So Shandel Miller and Mrs. Chana A. Forster. Well, I'll keep them this way because we're live. So. Which one? Nice to meet you. Shandel? I can shop. Okay. I also have another 4 admission raffles before we move on. So I have M. Chazan for a $50 gift certificate to Mendy's. Rivka Leah Shanitsky. Ooh. Yay! She's my daughter's basmora. A $50 gift certificate to Judaica World. GK, that's a mystery, for a gift certificate, a Shabbos package at Gumbo's. And Rachi Aaron, moment to thank. Shlomi and Linda Gutleiser of Apple Drugs. Bensi Roskin of Bensi's Fish. Levi Krinsky of the Brooklyn Artisan Bakehouse. Levi Harrell from Yen Koltov. Aaron Roskin of Roskin's Fruit. And Baruch Naparstik of Zaykon's Kingston Toys and Stationery. All right. Thank you. Ladies, get ready for a real treat. Here tonight we have the talented Nava Rivka Pais, who will inspire us with song, accompanied by Simi Sabag on the guitar and Chevy Rosenfeld on the flute. Enjoy. All right.
To move over.